Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Xposed with Ash. I'm your host, Ash Lazoo. Today, I have a very special guest on. You could go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sasha Varias. I'm a counselor at a domestic violence shelter.
Yes. So this episode, it is going to take on a serious note. I'm all about informing people of any subject. And Sasha and I have a history of 7-8 years, maybe.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time.
I know.
And I want to say I've been with you on your journey.
You really have, honestly. Because I started going to you when I was still in my undergrads, and you saw me through that and through my whole master's.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you were in the thick of it.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. That was years. Yep.
Yeah.
So I know we talk about defining moments, right? And how our lives change with certain things. So I want to dive right in. So how has life been since you graduated and went straight into you're working at a shelter?
Yeah, so when the agency I'm working in now was kind of first like my big girl job. So I finished school with a psychology degree, and I didn't even go to school for psychology. I went for nursing, and I did the nursing program, and I didn't make the grades to stay in it. So it's one of those things where where I'm going to leave my life to. I'm like, I'm going to start from scratch someplace else with nursing, or I'm just trying to graduate. So
At this point, right?
Yeah, so I did psych. I fell in love with psych. I fell in love with the department. I've always had like a passion to take care of people, but you always think about like medical in that sense,
Right. And not mental.
And not
emotional.
mental, right? And then it wasn't until like I changed my major to psychology, I was like, wow, like your mind is such a powerful thing. And I was just like, oh my goodness, like why do not more people talk about this?
Yeah.
And the way you can help people like mentally. So then I graduated. One of my friends was already working at the agency a year prior in a different role. She was doing it's something called court advocate. So they do like court accompaniment for people who are getting like restraining orders that need like legal resources.
Okay.
So she was like, hey, there's this position open in shelter. As an undergrad, I worked as a residential advisor. They're like, you already know like residential work, like just go for it. And I did, and I haven't like left since. I kind of worked my way through it all in there. Yeah.
That's really cool. How has that changed your view on relationships in general?
You know what? You become so much more skeptical of people. Like when you see a lot of this time when it comes to like domestic violence, like people who are abusers are gonna operate in a selfish mindset.
Right.
So they're gonna know what to do and what to say to like get what they want from that person. Like, and it's like things that, you know, they've been like ingrained already, used to like operating the world this way, where like they have to put on a persona to kind of get what they want so they can have like control and power over the situation. So like being in that environment and also like seeing how the system is so messed up, it's like you grow up knowing a sense of how messed up the system, but when you're working with people and like
that need
families, and their livelihood, and you're kind of like, it's your job to help them get set up. And when you see like all the roadblocks that come their way and everything, you're just like, oh my gosh, these people really cannot catch a motherfucking break.
Yeah.
And it just makes me so like angry because I'm just such a passionate person. I'm such a big like, I hate injustice. I hate inequality. So like, especially when people who know better don't act better, that really gets me riled up. So it's
Me too. Me too. I call it the passion Puerto Rican come out.
Yeah.
Right? Passionate Puerto Rican. Don't call us crazy.
For real. But that's what comes to me. I'm like, it's not fair to treat someone
who's already
way.
down and out on top of that. That's the hard part about it.
Right. So I feel like being in that job, that's what it kind of like, I've always had that passion, but in that job, it kind of like just like upscaled like even more.
That's excellent. So control, right? I know abuse begins with control, and I think a lot of people don't understand when they're actually being abusive. And I know there's like a tipping point when it goes too far. What are some of the red flags as a professional? Because I do have later on, I do have a letter that I'm gonna. Somebody very close to me sent it to me. She wants me to tell part of her story and how she got out of her abusive relationship. I haven't read it yet. It got sent to me like minutes before we started recording. Mm-hmm. So I am going to be sharing that. But from a professional standpoint, what are the red flags that you know to tell people, look, if this is happening, maybe, steer away because these are the red flags that this person's doing and I think you are in danger.
Right. I think the biggest thing is to notice when you're not acting any different, but then your partner is getting upset. And then you getting afraid to be able to speak to your partner about
walking
certain
on
things.
eggshells.
Yeah, for sure. So like in the beginning, in the relationship, like how I said, like people who are abusers know to act a way to get what they want. And that's where like the term love bombing comes in. Like they go in really heavy with all this love, with all this like admiration, with all this attention, like things that you don't really think about, double think, because you're thinking this person just really cares about me and they're acting this way because they love me. And then they start slowly implementing their things. I mean, I feel like one of the first telltale signs is jealousy. And people think, and it's one of those things where like, well, a little bit of jealousy is healthy in a relationship. But in reality, jealousy isn't healthy in a relationship. You should, right?
Listen, I always tell everybody I don't like jealousy. Right. Like my husband's the only person. There are times I'm like, you don't get mad at all? He goes, no. Why? For what? I'm like, okay, because you see me. I have a bunch of guy friends, girlfriends. I'm out, I'm about, I'm doing everything. And it's just, I feel like my relationship, it took time, but it's healthy. Mm-hmm. But that's one of the first signs he's not jealous. And if he sees something that's a little off, he'll be like, hey, Ash, this I don't like how this looks. Maybe you should watch yourself around this person. And it's never, I don't want you around that person.
Right.
It's watch yourself when you're around them. I don't like how they're moving. Yeah. And I feel like that's a big difference.
That is a big difference. It's like the way you communicate it, right? It's like you're in one point, if you're communicating your feelings about it, that's fine. But then if you're telling them like not to do something, like if you realize your partner is making you change who you are, that's a huge telltale sign.
Yeah. And we're not possessions.
Right.
We're not possessions. We're not, it's like you can't own me. Like even if you sign a marriage certificate, that does not mean I own you and I can tell you what to do. Like you're barking up the wrong tree. Like that's not how things work.
Exactly. Yeah. And people don't really see that because, you go back to the fact where like this person was so amazing in the beginning. And they're like, if this person is so amazing, is capable of such amazing things, like I have to trust that what they're doing is for the benefit of the both of us. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, because this person already set that tone to begin with, where like they're capable of all these amazing things because that's what they show you in the beginning, until you realize they slowly start implementing things that they want and you're just like questioning it. But then it gets to a point where, like, now you don't even have the option to question it. Now it's just being straight up denied or, like, minimized and then slowly getting into worse cases, A big thing you see a lot always is, like, the verbal, like, emotional abuse. And then when that doesn't get to the next step would be, like, physical. A lot of times people who end up being physical are people who already have things, like, personally, like maybe like substance abuse that they're going through, or like maybe history of like violence themselves in their relationship. I kid you not. Like I don't have the actual statistics, but from my experience, I think like 7 out of 8 clients that I intake, their abusive partners come from family with like abusive patterns in it.
So it goes back to childhood and what they see and what they witness, and the brain is a beautiful thing where it's like you get to study it, but when you have trauma at a young age, that's where disassociation comes in and the patterns of learning and those core memories kind of intertwine, and they think it's okay. Yeah. And I feel like that's the biggest part of the problem, is that they don't know that they're doing wrong. So how do you educate the abuser? Like, this is not okay, and are they open enough to even try to fix that part of themselves?
And it's one of those things where, like, for people who are abusers, I don't work directly with abusers, and my agency doesn't help with abusers, and that's something that's, like, within
more for
our
psychiatry,
work,
right? Like, how do you refer like, what do you do? Can you refer the abuser to somebody?
Programs around, like, resources around the county. So, like, we have, like, a 24-hour hotline that people call for, like, resources and services. So if it's somebody who's, like, is an abuser, you know, gets our number and they're looking for, like, a program because it's court mandated. That's another thing. Like, they're not going to get help unless it's court mandated.
Really?
Yes, because you have to think of people who are abusers similarly to, like, characteristics are narcissists, where, like, they're incapable of holding themselves accountable to their behaviors and how their behaviors affect others.
The proper term for narcissist, ladies and gentlemen, because that term is so overused throughout social media.
Yeah,
I'm
so
sorry.
overused.
I'm like, yes, that's a narcissist. Go ahead, finish the definition.
No,
so more people can actually pinpoint what that is.
Right, people that are unable to hold themselves accountable for their behaviors, because at the end of the day, they behave in a way that's gonna gratify themselves and gonna make themselves feel secure, regardless of the collateral damage that comes behind it,
right.
Whether it be affecting somebody else's life, somebody close to you. Like, their purpose is to gain their own self-gratification. And same thing with the abusers too, where it's all about power and control and having power control over their partners, and wherever that may look like. Yeah,
they play victim a lot, where it's like you catch them in the act, you catch them whatever it is that they're doing, and it's like, oh, well, I didn't mean to, and I don't like how this makes me feel, and it's always them, not, oh my God, I am so sorry I hurt you.
Yeah,
because that's my jerk reaction. We're like, oh my, I did not know my behavior caused you to feel this way, and I apologize, but
that goes back to they can't hold themselves accountable to what they're doing and their own behavior. So it gets to a point where, like, you have to yourself realize the effect that you're doing to the people around you. Like, whether that be your partner, whether you have kids and you see how your kids are being affected, like, you have to come to that agreement within yourself to realize there's change. Is there a possibility for change? Absolutely, because there's the resource out there to do it. But, you know, you can only it's one of those things where, like, you got to help yourself first, you know? And I'm such a big believer where, like, God helps those who help themselves. Like, those are the type of things, like, you need to come to yourself to make that decision, be motivated to change and face those things.
And hold yourself accountable.
Yes, it's really, it's all about accountability. Yeah.
So I have to admit my own certain things right now. Way back when, I did not grow up in that, you know, household where it just wasn't ideal. And I grew up angry. I grew up not knowing, like, the proper way to treat people. So I was abusive. Like, I know you can't imagine it now because how you see me now, but I was very abusive. I was very angry, and whoever got close to me, I was so used to the people closest to me hurting me. So it was like, strike before I get hurt. Right. And I would never forget it. I watched, and I was already married. I don't know if it was just my daughter or both my daughter and my son. It gets hazy because after, I think 25 is when your brain finishes developing. Yeah. And, you know, that's when you start realizing certain things. So I watched, remember Red Table Talk? Yeah. From Jada Pinkett Smith? Yeah. Yeah. So I watched that, and they had an episode about abuse. And she was saying things, and I was just like, oh, like, I was taking it personal. I was like, oh my God. So then I went and I had a talk with Jacob, and I was like, am I abusive? Like, wow. I said, am I like this? He was like, no. He goes, you're just a little passionate. And I'm like, okay. But even just watching that and then looking within, like, oh my God, like, there are certain things that I've done where it's like controlling, but a parent, you know, being a parent and all that. I had to really take a deep dive, and that's what sparked that that journey of wanting to do better and just see myself for who I am and who am I, you know, because you're still discovering yourself. And I had to admit, like, yeah, there were certain things I did that were very abusive, and I didn't care how I hurt other people because I was always being hurt. You know, we're told that our parents are supposed to love us no matter what, but both of them has let me down in massive amount of ways, you know? So it was one of those things where I didn't know better because of my upbringing.
And that's one of those things where, like, hurt people.
Yes. Until you learn how to do better. When you know better, you do better. So that was just one of those things where it's just like, it is possible, but you have to look within. You have to hold yourself accountable.
For sure.
Say apologize to the people you hurt. Right. You know, that plays a big role. And it's just, that was the point, my turning point, you know, within healing.
Yeah. And then I just want to like acknowledge that point for you where like you came to be aware of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing where like you can only change what something that you're aware of.
Right.
And a lot of the times these people who are abusive are not aware what they're doing. And if they are aware of they're doing, they feel justifiable in what they're doing. So that's another thing too, where like what's justifiable about what you're doing at the moment? Because there really isn't. And then again, a lot of things comes back from like your family and childhood, culture is such a big thing.
Culture is a huge thing.
I work with such a big like Latino population, and you know, like machismo is such a big thing in that population. and like
it's women, a huge thing. I'm laughing because it's like
it's huge.
That's the main, you know.
It's like, so women like naturally are used to being submissive and kind of men in their lives kind of doing what they want, and it's normalized because that's just the position where men are put in. And
I'm sorry, a toxic part of me, I love the masculine, like, you know what I mean, like go wash the dishes, like all right. Sometimes, not all the time.
And the what makes those patterns bad is that sense of fear where like you feel like you like your partner fears like going against you or like maybe like sharing themselves to you. Like it's great that you acknowledge that you felt you were abusive, but it sounds like your husband didn't see it that way. He saw it as passion, and that just goes to show he didn't fear you. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but it doesn't sound like there was like a sense of fear. Once there's a sense of fear, that's when you realize it's abuse. Because toxic patterns and like abuse is such a fine line between. Because I've seen it with clients too, where like, you know, they're like, well, I'm not afraid of him. Like I bucked up just like he bucked up. Like, it was just that one incident where like, well, I'm not gonna continue living my life fighting this person. And that's why they decide to leave. But there's definitely a relationship where there's kind of like co-abuse where like people come at each other and there's not really that sense of fear. So there's such a fine line between like abuse, especially and toxicity.
In certain households where they're so used to that they don't see it as abuse. You know, so it's like I could say I did X, Y, and Z, but you don't know what his background was. So he's saying like, oh, okay, here we go, you know, and waving it off. He's not afraid, but it's like, oh my God, let me get this done so I can shut her up. You know, so I get that. That's a really good point to make. Man, I'm like thinking, you know how it's like the wheels start turning sometimes. It takes some time to process it. So I know a big part of seeing abusive relationships, right? So now let's talk about like the family aspect. And let's say I am watching somebody that's close to me being abused, and I felt like it got to a point there's really nothing you can do. They gotta help themselves when they want it.
Right. And for sure. I had a cousin that kind of went through something like that. Throughout like us growing up, she had boyfriends that were jealous and they were controlling and never put their hands on her, but definitely has done stuff like, you know, broken their phone because of anger, punched steering wheels like in front of her, things like that. And then she ended up getting married to this guy who was like super controlling, like ended up moving her out of like state, like, and isolating her, which is like another big red flag. And that's when her first physical incident happened, when they were already living outside of state. They have nowhere like connection to like their family members. It just so happened the state that she moved to, I had family there, and it just so happens that my cousin's wife also worked in domestic violence in that state. So I hit her up and I was like, just let me know, like, what are the resources around there? And I just gave her all the resources that I can to let her know, like, there are options. There is help. She never took him, right? But luckily that she had a family support system. When she decided it was enough, they were able to, like, pay for her and her kids to come back to Jersey. And they were able to, like, I mean, she ended up getting divorced and now she remarried to an amazing man now who's just been like so good to her.
Thank God.
Right. But it's literally a personal choice. And from the outside looking in, you don't see the reason why somebody would stay. But the reality of things is that set fear really keeps somebody in those patterns.
Yeah,
like,
they're in a prison in their mind.
Right. And sometimes it's easier to deal with the devil that you know than the devil that you don't.
Right.
Especially when you're in a position where like you literally lost all control. Like this person now, like, you know, you can't even leave your house without this person knowing where you are. You don't even have access to your own money anymore because this person now, you given access to their money. If you have kids involved, like
that's where it's really sticky.
Oh, and I've seen situations where like kids have put like their own parent like in danger because of the abuser. And those patterns are from the outside looking in. You don't see it, and you don't see the mental turmoil that people go through when they're in these patterns of abuse. Like when you deal with enough of people like invalidating your feelings and minimizing it, you just begun questioning yourself. Like, am I the crazy one? Like, is this all in my head? Like,
reverse gaslighting and
right,
gaslighting yourself.
Right, and that's the part of gaslighting where like, and people think, oh, like, no, but no. After a while, you really lose a sense of yourself in that relationship.
Yeah.
Once you lose that sense of yourself, like this person has any way to like do whatever they want to you at that point. So it really comes to a point to realize like what I'm going through is not enough. Like you have to get to that point where like I'm done. Like this is not enough, wherever that looks like. I mean, statistically, it could take up to 7 times to leave those type of relationships. And I mean, that's like somebody leaving like 20 times, coming back in and out of the relationship. And then there's people that are like, that one time and I'm done, and they figure it out. But it's literally a personal choice when it comes to like definitely ending that relationship.
So I've had moments, right, where I felt like a bad friend. And you know me, like I always try to give everybody my all. Mm-hmm. And there is a friend, we've been friends since high school. And like I do feel like a bad friend because I had to separate myself from that friendship because it was just so unhealthy. I was not a fan of her husband. He is on his way to being like a pastor in a church. And he just, to me, and this is my personal opinion, I feel like he hides behind being a man of God and preaching, but in a way, they got together in high school. You know, as soon as she got pregnant, they got married. Everything moved very quickly, and I think that's another red flag too.
That sounds like my cousin.
It's just a red flag when things move so quick. Like hurry up before you see the skeletons in my closet. You know, and I feel like that's one of the big things to watch out for. Is it's okay to move slow.
Right.
It's okay to move slow.
Right. That's how I said, like, love bombing. Where, like, you sense that. Like, you have to really think to yourself, well, why is this person so open and willingly to do so much to me?
This fast.
Yeah. Like, you don't know me. Like, you don't know my life. Like, you don't know, like, what I've done, what I've been through. Yeah. Like, it's so interesting how you could have so much, like, care and attention so quickly and want to do so much for that person so quickly too. And like depending on where you grow up, right, you think to yourself, and look at media too, where if you grow up watching like Disney princesses and stuff like that,
Disney poisoned our let me not
right, it's a thing now talking about Disney and what they
however, Mulan has been my favorite Disney movie because she did all of that without a man. She became the man. Right. Mulan is always my favorite. I did my whole tattoo on my sleeve is like the Asian Mulan theme because I'm like, Mulan's a badass. Like we go for Mulan.
Yes, because she did shit for herself. Yeah. Literally. And you see, and like, but
there's like Disney's this fairy tale
of like this Prince Charming, and not just that. Like, and think of Latino culture and like telenovelas. Like, there's always like this beautiful like man who is just gonna save you from like your wretchedness, save you from like your poverty, give you all the support that you need, and like you're so conditioned to like rely on a man, rely on a partner to like get you out of things, and that you give them that power because you're expecting that they're gonna have your genuine interest at heart, until it slowly comes out that they're not thinking about they're thinking about themselves.
And it's funny, so still back to the friend, because that just kind of went in the same wavelength. So they get married have the baby, and little by little, he starts taking things away, but not in a way where, you know, he shows so much love. Everything emotional is good, but it was the financial. He took away her power by taking away her money and having her depend only on him. Even when he bought a house, that was his house. There was nothing with her name on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and when it got to a point, and I felt like the bad friend because it got to a point where she was venting to me. And she was like, what's your honest opinion? I'm like, look, when you ask for my opinion, I'm going to give you a raw opinion. Like, please be sure you know what you're asking. She was like, yeah, I trust you. I'm like, okay, well, I think he's abusive. I think that I've known you from before you guys met. I see how he is now. Everything's about him, not you and the kids. Did they have 2 kids at this point? I'm not sure. But it's never about you guys as a whole. It's him first. Like, he could do wrong. But if she kind of did something slightly out of, you know, their normal routine, it was like, oh, but you did this, you did that. It was always you. It was never, I did this too, I'm sorry. But from what she's telling me, because this is still a one-sided thing. And I would never forget, there was a point where she was like, I'm done. Like, this was like 4 or 5 more years later, conversations later, you know, 2 kids later. And she was like, I noticed that this is that. I remember what you told me about him being financially abusive and just controlling that money so that she couldn't go anywhere. And she was ready to leave. And I'm like, great. You know, look, this is what I do know. I could point you in different directions for whatever, you know, services you may need, whatever help you may need. You know, I got you. I'll send you out. Not send you out, but I'll point you in the right direction so that you could start figuring it out. And again, I'm the friend that he wasn't a fan of me. Who knows what conversations they had? Not my business. But nobody's a fan of me because when I show up as this strong, you know, force where it's just like,
and I'm gonna tell you,
I see through you.
Right. And people who are abusers are gonna feel that way always about like their partner's friends. Because it's the whole isolation thing. And especially somebody who sees with who they are.
Yeah, I saw when I tell you it was like a laser vision, I was just like, okay. Gonna stay quiet, but I see you. And they know that look.
No, for sure. They know.
And when she was getting ready to do everything, he went to her parents and convinced her parents that she was having a manic episode. And I was just like, he's good. He's good. Please be careful because this could get dangerous, you know? And again, like it happened. I want to say it was radio silence for like a week. And I checked in like, hey, girl, like, are you okay? I'm thinking about you. You know, let me know if you need anything. And it was like, oh, yeah, hey, Ash, I was having a manic episode. I'm good now. He's right. He's right about everything. And I'm reading this message like, whoa. Like, it was just delusion. To me, it was just delusion where I was like, wow. That, like, that he was that convincing to make her believe she was having a manic episode when, like, nothing she said was wrong.
Right. And this is what happens when those things, like, come to be. Because you get to a point where, like, you're like done, right? And then people who are abusers, they know when their partner gets to that place, they're losing power and control. So they're going to do whatever they can to regain it again. And a lot of the times is going back to that love bombing again. So they're going to go with the apologies. They're going to say, I'm sorry. They're going to be like, you know what? I'm just trying to take care of you. Like, I care for you so much. Feeding you all these things that, like, you've been deprived of. Think about it. Like, you've been deprived of because you're constantly, like, catering to this person, and you're being depleted. And once you finally get enough to like end it, they come back and be like, but no, like I have all these things for you and everything, and then you fall for it. He was gonna have her institutionalized. That's why I'm like, he's good, because he kept saying manic episode, and then the parents agreed. So if you have all these people who are, I don't want to say above you, but have a say in your life, because when you're married, you can say, my spouse isn't in the right state of mind, take them until they are. And there's a law about it. I don't know the name of the law, but there is, you know, a thing. And he almost did that. And when I tell you, I was terrified for her. And at this point, when she pulled the whole, I was having this and I had that and having that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to step back. You know, I wish you the best. Here are the resources. You're still open to that. And the best thing about some of the resources, the website, there's a button that you could click if somebody's near, and it shuts down and it sends you to a whole other website just for safety reasons.
But it's, as a friend, I felt terrible because I knew what was up and I could do nothing. And that happens with a lot of friends and family members where it's just like, you really don't have, like, you can't do anything for them. They have to do it.
You really can't. Like, even like in the work that I do, because I've seen it with clients that, like, I already know they're gonna go back. Like, I already know that
when they're iffy,
when they're thinking so much about them, when they're so sad that they have to figure their whole, like you have to think about it. Like, these patterns, you literally give everything to this partner. Like, this partner literally has everything, like, and you're so depleted within yourself. Like, you don't even feel capable enough to even think that you're capable of doing anything more. Like, it's you're like, self-confidence is like literally down the drain, and you love this person. The love is still there because you still hold on to the fact of the person that they were when you
who they pretended to be.
Exactly. And whether they pretended to be that or not, like, the point of the matter is, this is how they're acting now. And this is how they're making you feel now. And some of them, you see it, and it's all you could do is like, listen, like, you have control of your life, whatever that may look like. Just know that whatever you want, you have control of it. It's just doing what you want. If this is not what you want, there's other things available, but you have to get to a point to do what you want. And, like, really assure people that you generally do have the control. This person may make you feel like you have no control, may make you think that you are less than nothing. But the fact of the matter is, that's completely wrong. You are your own person. Like, your feelings matter. Like, what you want for yourself matters. And the important things is to get what you want for yourself, whatever you feel that's self-gratifying to you. I always leave my clients with that, where, like, it's like your life is literally in your hands, especially in that moment when they're not together, where, like, you could realize, like, you literally have control of what you want for yourself. And they have to come to a point where, like, they have to step into that role themselves and realize, like, take control of their lives and put the matters in their own hands. And that looks differently for everybody, So that's the difficult part. Like,
it is. So what are some of the strategies that, let's say somebody's currently in it and they're watching this episode and they have no idea where to start. What are some of the strategies to help them realize themselves, to stand in their power, and to start the whole process of just gaining that inner strength to begin the process of leaving?
I definitely recommend starting with counseling, because I see it a lot. Like, once you have counseling, like, in my agency, we don't do like clinical counseling. We do like more psychoeducational and like emotional support. And a lot of times when I see clients and we're going through like some of like worksheet curriculums and they're identifying themselves, they're like, oh shit, like, this is like, I'm not crazy. That's the thing. It's like, most of the time people feel like this is situation's just unique to them, and this is like, there's no way other people are going through this, or like, this must be only like their thing. Once you realize, oh no, like, this is like a pattern, like, there's things that happen when you're in this relationship, and they're just like, oh my gosh, they feel so validated. It's like going back to, it's validating their feelings and making them see like, no, you're not crazy. What you're going through is not okay. Like, clearly
you're validating.
Yeah. Once they get to that, they realize, okay, this is not okay. What do I need to do next? So a big thing we do is practice safety planning. So, like, preparing for the absolute worst that could happen and what you need to do to leave the situation. So, like, thinking about things like, if you guys get into arguments and the person gets physical, like, staying away from places where you're gonna get hurt the most, like bedrooms, bathrooms, kitchens, like, where they could easily grab things, like having like little like bags, like, in case you need to leave the house in an emergency. Having close friends that are not close to your abuser as support, like, be like, hey, like, I'm gonna leave a duffel bag, like in your house, like if any case, if I need to like be out someplace, like you have that there, like taking documents with you, always reporting. Like that's something that people don't do. And I get it because our justice system and policing are so difficult, and I've heard some terrible stories where like police officers that speak Spanish, fluent Spanish, pretend like they don't know Spanish to not help people out.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Depending on where you live, the police call the response calls is way different. Like in an urban city, your response call would take like an hour, 2 hours, compared to like a suburban town where like the police will be out your door like in 5 minutes. Like things like that does happen. But it's your right to call the police. It's your right. There are things you get emergency restraining orders. When a police calls, like some people say, some police officer will be like, "Oh, wait for the court the next day." No. There's on-call judges. There are 24-hour judges.
Really?
For that specific reason, for domestic violence restraining order reasons, where you could ask for that. And anytime you do report it, like you are eligible from the state to receive compensation for being a victim of a crime.
Really?
And all states, all 50 states.
Okay.
So, and that looks like different types of help, like counseling help, maybe hospital bills, maybe relocation. They'll give you up to $3,000 to like find a new place to like live, legal fees, like so much help, but it only comes from reporting the incident.
So you report it, and how do you ask for that?
So once you have a police report and you get connected to like domestic violence agency, there's some places in Jersey where like the family courthouse have like something called like a family justice center, which is like a one-stop shop for like legal services and like resources for people who are going through domestic violence. So they help assist with that as well. The victim crime, it's called Victim Crime Compensation Office, and the main office is literally in Newark. Like people don't even know that, and they don't tell you about this unless it's like extreme hardship that you've been through, like homicides or like extreme.
But why does it have to get to that point? And that's the part that's so frustrating. Why does it have to get to the point, the part where it's a homicide?
Right. It's so frustrating. Or people that have been through it and they at one point had the opportunity, but you're not in the right headspace to even understand like all these things. Because that's another thing that happens too, where like when you finally leave and you're getting the resources, but then 1,000 resources are coming at you at once, and you're literally just trying to figure out your life. You're like,
yeah.
I like, especially in the environment that I work in, which is a shelter, like these are people that literally up and leave their homes, have their kids, and now they have like nothing. They have nothing, and they have to literally figure out from like square motherfucking one, like what they're gonna do with their lives. So it's so much going on at the same time. It's so scary. It's so scary. Like you think about people who like say like a lot of clients I have dealt with are undocumented clients, and you hear people were like, I never even wanted to come to this country. Like I had my life set up in my country. I worked, I had my own property. Like I was living fine. I only came here for this man and this relationship to now have nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's difficult.
So difficult. So I let people know, like, you have rights. The rights are there. It's practicing your rights and knowing your rights to practice them.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's knowing your rights and knowing. Just knowing.
Just knowing. Like, knowledge is power.
Ooh, yes. Knowledge is definitely power.
Knowledge is definitely power. And you see it a lot where, like, people fall into these patterns because they don't know better. They don't know that these things are not okay. Like we just spoke about how like generationally, like in your family, where like you're so used to a certain pattern that you think like,
you think it's okay,
this is okay, and then until you're in it within yourself and you realize this is not okay. Like now this is getting to a point in my life. Am I willing to lose my life for this person? Am I willing to risk my kid's life for this person? Am I willing to leave my kids without a parent because of this person? These are the type of questions.
And how will that person parent if I am no longer in the picture? Because then that creates another toxic cycle.
These are the questions that like come up that you have to face and then realize, is this something you want to continue or not?
Right.
And that's what ends up happening. I think those are the defining factors of like, am I going to continue this relationship or I'm going to get out of it?
Wow. So I have a letter of somebody who recently, when I say recently, I mean the tire marks are still in the driveway recently of how she got out. And I have a letter. I'm a little nervous to read it. I'm a little nervous, but I do have a letter that she wanted me to share. And of course, for her safety, we're not mentioning names. We're not mentioning anything like that. It is somebody close to me, very close to me. And I remember being not a part of it, but I remember a phone call asking, and this may have some trigger warnings in it, so whoever is watching, just please skip over this part if you do feel like you're going to be triggered. And we're going to put resources and so much information in the description below, so just please keep that in mind. But I got a phone call, a text in the middle of the night, hey, can you watch the kids? And I'm like, it's 11 o'clock at night, we're all sleeping. And then my son was a baby at that time, so I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Only to find out, my heart is pounding, only to find out the next day that it was a big domestic fight. And when I tell you, the guy he broke windows with a bat, there was blood smeared on the walls. It looked like a crime scene, so I'm like, oh my God, like the kids were there. Like there was no care for the kids. There was no care for her and her safety. She was bloody, and it's just, you saw hair. It looked like a movie. There was handprints on the walls, and I saw pictures of it, and I'm looking at the pictures, and I was destroyed. Like the guilt that came from that, and we're thinking, okay, we're gonna help her. Let's get her out. Let's do this. Let's do that, and then she went back, and I'm just like, how? Why? But again, it's that everything that we just talked about. It went back to that. So there's certain memories that come up. So I'm a little worried. I'm shaking. I'm a little worried about what's going to be in the letter. But it is somebody close to me. It is, just, it's a lot. Like, it's a very serious topic. And it's I'm happy you're here to, like, navigate through it. Because I'm sure it has, like, most of the things that we've talked about during this episode. Let me just get my iPad.
Okay. Breathe through it.
I know. I was just like, oh, man, I haven't read it. So this is the first. Get the files open. All right. And she titled it Letter to My Friend. Dear friend, I sometimes wonder, how did I make it out? Dealing with an abuser for 15 years was very traumatic, and sometimes I thought I would never ever make it out of this horrid nightmare. Am I awake? Is this real? Sometimes I blame myself as to why my life became this toxic sorrow life. It all starts from when I was younger. I always felt alone and was always told I was too much for most. You're stupid, you're loud, you're hyper, you're too dramatic. I never felt like I would find someone who would love me for me and tolerate the type of person I was. Well, that's a key word, tolerate. So childhood, I always felt abandoned since a child and alone. My mother never raised me. My father chose another woman and her sons over me. I was never close to my own sisters. I can see why my abuser saw me as a perfect match to manipulate and take advantage of. It all started when I ran into him in the stairway in high school. I was dumped after prom and was crying, and this man walked up to me and gave me a big hug. He gazed at me like I was the only woman in the world with no distractions around. I felt safe and warm with him around. This is where I didn't notice my life would change for good. He knew I was alone and felt alone, so he made it so I felt like he was all I needed. He made sure I wouldn't talk to my family. When I would get into small arguments with my mom, sisters, and dad, he would tell me exactly why you don't need them. You have me. I never realized back then that that was a red flag. It then started to get worse. When it came to me going to my mom's house or aunt's house or even to hang out with my cousins, he would throw a tantrum and say, they don't love you. They treat you like shit, so why go? I'm the only one who loves you and cares for you. I love you more than your own father loves you. I would obey and stay at home at times because I felt like he was right, that my family really didn't love me and they hated me, and that he was the only person in the world who really loved me. I started drifting away from my family more and more to the point I would only see them on holidays, then eventually not at all. I then started to notice he had a problem with me, even going out with my friends and cousins or even hanging around, having people over. He wanted me to himself. He would fight with me and argue with me and tell me I'm not going. sorry, this font is small, and tell me I'm not going, that I'm just going to fight with my family and they don't care about me. I stopped seeing everyone. It then got worse when I would try to talk to my cousins on the phone. He would curse and talk to them in a bad way while I was on the phone with them. He always made people uncomfortable who would call me, to the point people stopped calling. Once he had made me, I don't think this was proofread. Love you, girl, but he always made people uncomfortable who would call me, to the point people stopped calling. Once he had me to himself, that's when he changed even more. If I had a disagreement with him or even tried to get upset about something, he would choke me to the point I would pass out. When I would wake up, he said I had to do that so that so that I can relax you. He would say I'm the one who's going crazy and that the only way to calm me down was to put me to sleep. I wish I would have walked away then. The reason why I say that is because my son is affected from this. My entire pregnancy, he would choke me to the point I would pass out just so that I could be quiet. Wow. It got so bad, I ended up giving birth early to my son, and due to my son not receiving enough oxygen, it affected him developing properly in my womb. My son has fine motor problems, a speech delay, and he doesn't know how to self-regulate properly when he's upset. If I would have left when I first saw the beginning signs of abuse, my son would have been healthy and normal. I blame myself every day, and it hurts me more when he gets bullied for his speech impediment. People always say, well, how come you didn't leave when he first hit you or when he choked you out while you were pregnant? I wasn't strong enough to leave. I had no family support or help. I didn't make enough money to support myself. I didn't want to go to a shelter either. And I was so scared he would not be a father to our kids. I sacrificed my happiness so my kids could grow up with their father. Yes, he was abusive, but he always love bombed me so much that when he love bombed me, it made me forget all the bad and the abuse. He would love bomb me by making me breakfast every morning. He would give me body massages and sing to me and dance with me like we were the only two people in the world. He was always affectionate with me as well, but if others tried to be in my life, meaning family or friends, I gave them attention. That's when he would get angry and abusive. That's when I would start getting hit or threatened or to get left. I let him win for 15 years, but I finally let go. Enough is enough. I wanted my power back, and that's when I took the courage to leave. It's okay to be alone, and now that I'm older and wiser, I understand sometimes a 2-parent household isn't best for the kids. A happy mother is. I'm not really alone in the end. I have my children, and since I left my abuser, my sisters, cousins, mother, and father came back into my life. I get upset sometimes because I wish I would have left sooner, especially since I have my family now. But I look at it as if I wouldn't have become this strong, independent woman I am today. It may feel like we're all alone and have to deal with abuse on our own, but I am learning we don't. Some days are easy and some days are very hard still, where I have panic attacks while I'm sleeping or my skin flares up because I am scared and overwhelmed, but I know it won't last forever. We must all be gentle with ourselves and heal ourselves. We are all human and healing.
That's so powerful.
Man. And to know this person, I was just like, whoa.
And I'm just hearing everything, and it's literally everything we were just discussing, like, to the T. And especially how she said, like, how she felt, like, so alone in her situation.
Yeah.
Until you realize, like, this is such a thing that happens in these abusive relationships. And I mean, amazing to your friend. I mean, the biggest thing that I tell clients all the time, like, I appreciate your presence. Like, even being here, being present, because only God knows what could happen worst off. Like, if, you know, things would have gotten too much carried away. I'm like hearing her choking. Like, in Jersey, strangulation is like I think it's like a 2nd-degree offense. Like, it's a federal offense.
It's attempted murder.
Yeah, because strangulation, I literally just did a training about it. It's crazy how much physical damage that strangling does to, like, your body. Like, it's like a medical emergency if you're strangled. So for her to survive, like, all those things, like, super powerful. Like, I'm just all the time
processing. I'm like quiet and processing. Like,
no, for sure, it's a lot.
Yeah,
and you really don't see that on the outside looking in. But, like, hearing from her letter, like, you see how much this person just made her feel isolated and made her feel like, you know, this is only to you because you caused this, like, this is happening to you because, and it's because he cut everything off. And and you see how now that she left him, how everyone just came around her and the support's always there. And that's always a surprising part, where this person always makes you feel like there's nobody to be out there, and the second you're out there, there's nothing but support coming in.
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember those conversations. I remember being on the phone, and it's always he's in the background, and it's like, here we go. Like, just talk to you later. Like that was always, So yeah, I get that part. It's the abuser making everybody else uncomfortable. Where it's like, if you're not gonna tell them to go away, I'll make sure they go away. So that's wow. And anybody in those situations, this friend, she's actually on her way to get her MBA.
Good for her.
So that shows you, like, this is not the end. Like, this is just, you kick that to the curb and you keep climbing up because, after you drop that weight, it's just, there's only up.
Oh my goodness, only up. Like, I see clients, like, I had this one client, and she comes in my mind so much because her relationship was 30 years in her marriage. 30 years. They had 3 kids. Her oldest kind of saw the worst of it, like, happen. Like,
they do.
Where, like, child protective services came in. Like, her leaving her husband was a long time running. Like, she came for our agency first, through counseling. That's when she realized there was abuse going on. And then our agency, because we're mandated reporters, had to get child protective services involved. And once that kind of came in, she kind of stopped getting services. 4 years later, it's up to a point where, like, she's been working herself. Like, she started getting a part-time job to, like, save money to leave. She was doing, this one incident happened. She left, and she was in so much despair, living in the shelter, like, anxious. And I was just like, you know what? When it rains, it pours. And sometimes it's a freaking hurricane when you're in the middle of it. But, like, not every time it's gonna be a no. All it takes is one yes, and the only way you could get to that one yes is to keep going, whatever that looks like for you. But keep going. Girl, she found an apartment with everything included. Like, now she's living with her kids in that apartment. She's like a completely different person. She was just like, I just can't believe how much lighter I feel. She was just like, the fact that, like, I have my own place and I don't have to talk about what time I'm coming home. I don't have to check in on anybody. Like, she was like, I don't even know what my favorite color is anymore. Like, now I have to figure things out.
Yeah, she's rediscovering herself.
Right. You start learning about yourself again, and you can only get to that place when you're out of it.
Yeah.
And for people who are still into it, and, or if you are afraid to call the cops at that time, I always recommend also document the things that happen, like writing down the date and, like, whatever was said,
and take pictures.
Incident, take pictures. Like, all these things are gonna be beneficial
Screenshots
to you.
Of text messages.
Oh yeah, for
print
sure.
them out and keep, like, a file folder.
Yes, keep it all, because that's gonna be beneficial to you later on. People don't like child protective services. Sometimes it's very much needed, especially the resources child protective services.
Yeah, they do give you resources.
Have.
They do. CPS does help you. They connect you with Perform Care, right? And I utilize Perform Care just because my kids, they have, special needs, and it's not. I didn't go through CPS, but I called Perform Care directly. But it's a great resource for anybody that needs extra help for their kids. And and they help you. They pay for summer camps. They give you therapy, behavioral therapy, like so many therapies.
And people don't know that they could call child protective services for themselves as well.
Yes.
Because, these systems are set up like to help you, like, especially I can't speak about other states, right, but in New Jersey the program definitely changed up to trying to, like, keep families united. Like, they're not gonna take away your kids because you're going through these things. They actually have domestic violence liaison in DCPMP for families that are dealing with domestic violence, to provide them the resources and support they need, because it's a whole different ballgame when you're dealing with domestic violence with kids involved as well.
Yeah.
So, like, people, like, the resources out there, just taking advantage of it and going for it yourself to get the full benefits of it. And also, like, knowledge is power. I just want to let everybody know that in the state of New Jersey, there's a bill right now that wants to put a domestic violent offender registry. So anybody who was convicted for a domestic violence crime, they're trying to make a registry, like how they have like a sex offender registry.
Yeah.
So you are aware of these things because these people who are abusers, you're not their first rodeo. If you're going through it, then you're not their first rodeo, and if they don't get help, you're not gonna be the last.
Yeah.
So it's great that they have it. Call your senators, like those who are out
call
there.
whoever you gotta call, write those letters. And
for sure. And there's so many things now that people don't know, like, for example, restraining orders. You could get them in the language that you speak. Courts don't do it and they don't advertise it, but it's a federal law. It's a state law that, like, if you want your restraining order in Spanish, French, like Creole, whatever, get that, like, for sure.
It's good to know.
Or like your police report, if you do have police report. So municipalities try to say you got to pay a fee. No.
Excuse me?
Right.
I never heard you had to pay a fee for a police report.
Oh, some places be trying to make you pay like $10, $20 to get copies of your police report.
Wow.
No. You could.
That's your right.
It's your right.
Yeah.
It's literally your right.
So what's your last quote or piece of advice? Anybody that's watching this that's afraid to start the process, what would you say to them after watching this? Like, how to just start.
How to just start. Okay. Well, first
as a professional, because we got a professional here.
Well, first off, your feelings matter. Your feelings matter, and they're validated. Emotions don't come out of nowhere. It comes out of a reaction to something. So if you're feeling some type of way about it, it's because something's making you feel that way. So trust your feelings. Trust your gut. Your gut instinct is never wrong. Like 9 out of 10, your gut is telling you what it is. And trust that to know that, I need to get help, whatever that may look like. Whether that be a friend, whether that be a family member, if you are somebody of faith, that may be like your religious guider or somebody of support to get you out of that situation. Maybe even your kid's school, if you have schools, like the social workers there, like they can help you out too. Support is literally everywhere. It's just, coming to yourself to ask for the help. You gotta ask for it.
Yeah, closed mouths don't get fed.
That's my thing too. I tell clients, closed mouths don't get fed. Yeah. And you miss 100% shots that you don't take.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what an episode!
Right,
this was a lot.
Self-care, people.
Self-care. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and giving us your professional viewpoints. And this was excellent. I am so humbled to actually sit here and listen to all of this, and I hope whoever's watching that you take your own pieces. Please comment, like, subscribe. Let me know your opinions. Share your stories if you want to. I'm always an open ear. If you just want to just talk, I'm always available just to talk with anybody. I will be leaving so many links, so many resources in the description below. Please utilize them. And this has been another episode of Xposed with Ash. I am your host, Ash Lazoo. Thank you, Sasha, for coming on.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Thank you guys for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, man.